Trump has signed an executive order demanding that his department head, who's Vince McMahon's wife, who's never worked in the fucking fucking
Vince McMahon's wife.
Yeah. WWE McMahon, Linda McMahon.
Oh, I know who McMahon is. Hence my reaction.
She's the head of Department of Education, confirmed by all the Republicans, because why not? It orders them to begin dismantling. Now, what does dismantling mean? It means basically everything that they can do to slowly close things out. They've acknowledged and had to pull back what dismantling means because Congress is the only group that can actually dismantle the Department of Education. You can't remove a department. And there's actually, part of this is actually really an incredible history. And it's one of those things that whenever you start seeing someone do a thing in the Trump administration, it's always worth looking at. Is there an analog in the past that shows that they're just pure racist pieces of shit doing it a second time? And the answer is yes. If you don't know the history, a lot of people don't know the history of the Department of Education. It was created in 1979 by Jimmy Carter after a long time sort of being part of I would say a larger group of Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, which was a larger scale department that the government had for, close to fucking 100 years, I think. Well, why does it have education in there? Well, someone tried to create a Department of Education. They tried to do this right after the Civil War and emancipation. And the Department of Education was set to nationalize standards to encourage children of slaves and slaves to gain education. It was intended to be an entire effort around that. And the South boycotted this and fought this so fucking hard that they demoted the Department of Education to being, instead of a department, an office inside of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. That's an amazing history to me. Like that's what we're talking about here. And that reality, I think, is lost on a lot of people when we start talking about how this operates or how these people talk about things or what it's set up as, because what the Department of Education does is actually not as extreme as Republicans at large think. And it's also not something that they've been without. And this is kind of what is really terrifying about this executive order as they're doing it and as they've sort of talked about it. Trump sat, and I think it's worth just as a note going and showing the really dystopian nightmare picture of Trump with children signing it. Apparently he turned to the children right before he signed it. And the quote that they have is, "It sounds strange, doesn't it? Department of Education, we're going to eliminate it." And he turned, flanked by children. Before signing it, Trump turned to the children and said, "Should I do this?" They don't say whether or not the kids clap, but
by the by, can I just say, it didn't right wingers on social media decry the use of minors in political campaigns for years? Like, wasn't that the whole argument against what's her name? My brain's not working. Environmentalist girl.
Oh, Greta Thunberg.
Greta,
you have to remember,
but
you have to remember, their politics is founded on resentment. They're not angry that that people are using minorities or children or anyone else in their political works. They're angry that they can't. I mean, it's very difficult to find, and it's horrifying that they've got, of all children here, it's a significant group of minorities. By the way, did you notice
the children there? So they have a black kid in the front, right next to him, looking very, very confused, as he should be. Same with the gentleman back there. But they have the Jewish kid with the hat.
It's a DEI. It's a DEI photo.
Who alone is not allowed to hold up a sign. Why? Because then you can't see his hat. It's like it's comical.
It's a DEI photo.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's anti-DEI, but in the antichrist way of being anti-DEI. It's the use of the exact same thing. Just hey kids, should I sign this thing that will cripple your future? Yeah. Okay.
Well, and again, it's their anger. They put it wherever it goes because they're generally impotent people, especially because they want someone to sort of prove them not to be impotent, which makes them even more so. that's why their anger sits as it does. They're not angry about having minorities and children be used. They're angry that they're unable to, and so they scream, "Why do you do this? You shouldn't." It's the literal traditional Nietzschean concept of ressentiment, like splayed out in front of us, and you can see that across the board. That's why their hypocrisy comes out so strong. But to have a black kid like cheer on or be excited about the destruction of the Department of Education when their primary role and the reason that they were even considered to create one in the first place was to ensure that the civil rights of children in education are kept. This is not a department that like determines every single thing that happens in education. That's been a thing that my entire life.
But listen, it's okay, kid, because if you achieve great things as an adult, they will delete your government record because of DEI. Just so you know.
I mean, it's accurate. And so like, so again, but when the Office of Education was first created, it was built to literally, and it's in their charter. It was in their charter to ensure civil rights. Like this is what this has been about from the beginning. It's trying to create an equal and egalitarian playing field for children across the country. And my entire life, ever since the Department of Education was started, which literally happened the year before I was born, it's been a thing, this returning power to the states. We don't want the Department of Education running everything. They don't. They haven't. That power has been left to the states. There's a reason that textbooks don't lobby Washington, D.C. They lobby California and Texas because those are the biggest like school district areas. So when you talk about like what does the Department of Education do, their budget's small. They only supply about $80 billion a year in cash to most schools, and they mostly fund underage. They mostly fund underfunded schools. They exist as a stopgap measure because in America, taxes are what pay for our schools, and those taxes pay for schools only in that zip code. It's not spread evenly. So the U.S. government comes in to pay for places that have less tax income, and then that is redistributed by the states. So by eliminating the Department of Education, you're basically saying we want unequal schools or a total lack of them in every single way. And we don't give a shit about the civil rights of students or equal opportunity in education at all.
And by the way, accidentally,
That's
because
it.
we're idiots, we're going to predominantly target red states and our own supporters, which is par for the course so far.
This is actually, it's going to affect kids in red states, I think, more. But it's going to affect minorities in those states at the most extreme. Yeah. And it's going to affect all kids because one of the challenges we have is even in blue states, like California is a massive state. I'm in Washington. I grew up in Colorado. The equality of schools in these states is, there's a differential. And I'm not sure it's felt more than in places like Illinois. Illinois is a blue state. But if you go to south side of Chicago or you go out to New Trier High School, it's a 20, 25 minute drive. And you go from one of the poorest schools in the nation to the richest per capita per student school in the nation. It's 25 minutes away. And the setup of this and the reality of that is the federal government was the only reason stopping that other school from completely falling out the bottom. By dismantling it or trying to dismantle it, it's, my wife almost was crying talking about this because to me, and I agree with her, the Department of Education isn't just some bureaucracy. The idea that everyone deserves an education, has a right to an education, and that even if we don't actually make it happen, that we want to at least try towards this egalitarian idea. It's a liberal idea, sure, but that's a thread that is cut. And it's a horrifying thing to consider that we're okay with inopportune, inegalitarian situations for 5 and 6-year-olds. That's a fucking crazy thing for us to just switch as a country to do. And it's awful. It's awful. It's awful.
I think we're going to be, and I can say we, because I think this is an international thing now. I think we're going to be entangling this knot for the rest of our lives. I think the amount of damage that's being done now is going to reverberate for a very, very long time. It's not repairable because like these things, you destroy educational resources, you destroy the ability of a generation to positively contribute to their society, and
Yep.
not just the state, quote unquote, to the line going up, but to their communities, to make sure that those communities are healthy and not themselves a drag on the rest of the state, and therefore pariahs to the rest of the state, and therefore more of a drag because they're neglected further and further because they're held in contempt, and so on and so forth. Like this creates those situations. This is how you do that: is you make it so that kids growing up in already very poor conditions because you destroyed the economy. Well done there. They have no hope. There's nowhere to go.
And again, the dismantling of the Department of Education doesn't return us to what we had prior to it existing. That's the rub here, that I think the absolute stupidity that's happening here when people talk about, well, look, we're going to get rid of the Department of Education. In the 60s and 70s, we didn't have one. We'll go back to not having one. It's like, wait. We didn't have a Department of Education, but we had an Office of Education that was part of the Welfare Office of America. It's a cabinet level position, but it was an office inside of that oversaw all of these things. This was still done at the federal level. When everyone, all my parents and their grandparents, all of them had a Department of Education, and to say otherwise is ahistorical and absolutely, I think, points to the very thing that fought forming it in the first place in the late 1860s and 1870s.
Hi,
A happy thought.
Oh, I don't have a happy thought, but I have a secret to tell you.
No, it's about a happy thought. Hello?